Welcome to Kidmissing Radio. I'm your host, Angelina Wilson. My guest today will be Margaret Olisky. She is the sister of Stephanie Olisky. Stephanie was killed in East Windsor, Connecticut, by a blow to the back of the head. It's been reported that she may have been shoved out of a vehicle or something, but the autopsy report says blow to the back of the head. Now, East Windsor, Connecticut is a small New England town. This case is probably my most personal because my grandfather grew up in East Windsor, Connecticut. And, in fact, had I lived there, I would have been the fifth generation that did. So I want to welcome Margaret. And
thank you.
Can I ever give you a background of the story? Could you give us a background of what happened?
Sure.
That day, left about friends, or?
Yeah. Well, my sister, she left right after dinner time. And I do remember that. I was young. I was only 5, but I remember her leaving after dinner time, and then I never saw her again. So from what my mom told me over the years was that she had gone down to a friend's house. I think the friend's house was right next to like where the Ramada Inn was at that time. And then, according to what everybody said after was that she left there about 9:15 at night. She was 15 minutes late for curfew. And she was on her way home. So, she had to walk home. It probably would have taken her 15, 20 minutes. And then, from what they told me, she was found right next to the East Windsor Grill, laying on the side of the road. And I guess the woman that went inside and told Carl Weymouth, the police officer that was in there having lunch, that there was a girl on the side of the road. I guess they never could find her, which I found very odd.
That is odd.
Yeah, he never took her name or anything like that, and nobody could seem to find her again. She did call my house when I was about 10 years old to find out if anybody ever got arrested, and I remember how shooken up my mom was about it. But she never gave her name or anything and just hung up. So, that was really odd, too. So my sister was in a coma. Yeah, the whole thing is odd. My sister was in a coma, and they had several suspects, I guess, but nothing ever came to light on that. And then she died August 1st. She was in coma for 11 days.
She was just 15 years old.
Correct.
So she was 10
just
years
15.
Older.
Correct.
Now, you guys lived in the village of Warehouse Point, correct?
We lived on Prospect Hill. Yep. Warehouse Point, they would consider that Warehouse Point. Warehouse Point was really down by like where Geisler's is, and I think there was like a Richard's Drug Store. And we live up by where Walmart is now. Big Y is now. Walmart moved out of there. So, but I think they consider that Warehouse Point.
Oh, okay. I'm not really familiar with the town itself because I never actually lived there. Okay,
yeah.
Detective Stavel reopened her case in 1998. Is he still the detective on the case?
Well, I went in and interviewed with him when he reopened the case, and he just said that there was, so many inconsistencies with the police reports, right? He sent her DNA to, or DNA from some of the suspects' vehicles to the FBI lab, because obviously they didn't have that in 1975, and it all came back inconclusive. From what my mother told me when she was alive was that and I don't know how true this is. I mean, you know, kind of changed my mom losing her first daughter, right? But they said that they had somebody in custody, and then they let him go and said there wasn't enough evidence. But from what Detective Dable told me when I interviewed with him was a lot of the police reports, there was a lot of missing evidence. There was a lot of mumble jumbo. There was a lot of things that were inconsistently reported. And, you know, what he said to me was he thinks the truth died with Carl Weymouth. Although I'm still hopeful that guilt on somebody's shoulders.
I wonder why they died with the cop who found her. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, they never took her name or anything. You know, they don't know anything around unidentified woman. You know, and I can remember a couple phone calls to the house as I was growing up that you know really got my mom shook up, right? And I think that my older sister has speculations on what happened. I mean, I've heard various stories, and I'm not one to tell them because you know I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think my older sister had speculations of who was involved with that.
Yeah. And interestingly, in doing some research, I found a neighbor, or somebody who says they were a neighbor, says she was thrown from a van. I don't know where he got that from, but his screen name on the website that I found him on was Dave Imme, Daveimme.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah, well, well, there was a van that I guess there was a van, and like I said, I don't want to throw names around. I mean, but there's been names thrown around in my family for years, right? But I don't want to say anything untrue, right? But apparently that they had her blood in somebody's van that they had pulled in, you know, after they found her. And again, a lot of that evidence went missing. And Detective Stable had told me that the guy that owned the van was always a prime suspect, but because their evidence was missing, they could never put their finger on it. And I think at the time that he reopened the case, they had him in for another charge, and they had actually had his van in the compound yard. So I don't know if he opened it because of speculation. I mean, like I said, there was names thrown around my house for years, probably my whole life.
Is he still the detective on the case?
I believe that he closed it. Well, it's left unclosed, just unsolved. But there was a lot of inconsistency, and he couldn't piece anything together. You know, and he tried to talk to the coroner, but the coroner at the time that my sister died never returned his phone call, right? So, I mean, there's so much. And then he tried to. It's just like a great big circle, of people who don't want to say anything, right? And in all honesty, in my heart of hearts, I don't believe they maliciously meant to murder her. I mean, she was only, technically missing for 45 minutes because they found her at 10 o'clock at night, and the last anybody saw her was 9:15. So if somebody picked her up.
Were her friends that she was with questioned? I mean.
Yes, they were questioned both times in the initial investigation and then after. But so she walked, right? Obviously she was walking. She was only, 15. And she left her girlfriend's house at 9:15 or, 9 o'clock area. And then she was last seen and by the overpass, a 91 overpass, where you get onto 91 when you're going up 140, which is about 10 minutes from where she was. And somebody saw her that was at the gas station across the street, I guess. And then somebody picked her up there and then, you know, in a matter of 45 minutes, she was left on the side of the road. She didn't have any road rash or anything like that consistent with being hit by a car, right? They placed her there. I mean, you had a cop car in the East Windsor Grill, the guys having dinner, and just, you know, somebody pulled on the side of the road and put her on the side of the road. You know, so
yeah.
I mean, so I don't believe in my heart of hearts that it was intentional, and I think that more people know what happened than they're leaning to believe. And I just wish somebody would come forward and tell us the truth. You know, tell us what happened. You know, was it something that went bad where you're trying to abduct her and it went bad and you dropped her on the side of the road because you didn't mean to kill her? You know, something like that.
Yeah. Now, the person who found his name was Weymouth?
Carl Weymouth was the police officer that was in the East Windsor Grill having dinner. And then some woman came in, an unidentified woman came into the restaurant, the East Windsor Grill, and told him there was some girl laying on the side of the road. So he went out there and
they would interview her to find out. They would take her name and interview her to find out if she knew anything.
Well, I mean, granted, you know, maybe he was rushing out there to see if she was still alive, right? But at least take the woman's name or have her stay with you. You know, just leave, just let her go. You know, but again, he probably knew who it was. And then, you know, I feel like something's going on there. I feel like maybe Detective Weymouth or police officer Weymouth at the time, or maybe the detective at the time, maybe they had some kind of personal ties to the kid that was in custody. And, you know, maybe that's how it all slipped through because they didn't want to, you know, ruin the kid's life for an accident because obviously he would have been charged with murder or manslaughter. I heard that, my mom say that, and my dad say that several times. Was that?
Yeah.
And I'm not one to pass judgment. Again, I was young, and I don't want to say that, but I've heard that more than once from, you know, my parents, and I've heard that from other people as well. And it just seems to me that all this missing evidence and all this files, so to speak, you know, missing files and missing this and missing that. How can you lose files about a 15-year-old girl that was killed? I mean, seriously. But that's
I'm amazed at what police managed to lose. Now, your selectman actually offered a $300 reward at one time?
Right, and then some business offered another reward. So, I mean, I think the reward was up to like $500, and back in 1975, that was a lot, right?
Yeah, it was a ton. Yeah. Your sister was born in Germany?
Yep. Yeah, my mom and dad met in Germany.
Huh.
My mom was there. My mom and dad met during World War II. My dad was over there, stationed over there.
Huh. That's cool.
And then when my grandfather died, my dad's father died, they came here. They relocated here to take care of his mother.
Okay, so he was from East Windsor.
He was from Hartford. They were from Hartford originally. Right. But then, you know, my mom and dad relocated here, and, you know, my mom had I have a stepbrother, and then, you know, she had 3 little ones, so they bought a house in Prospect Hill.
Ah, so you guys grew up there?
Yes.
Okay. Did your sister have a boyfriend or a summer job or anything at that time?
My sisters both worked tobacco in the summer, right? That was the thing to do, but they weren't allowed to have boyfriends, right? And I don't believe that she did because she was an honor student. I mean, she was always in the honors. She was very smart, and she was very obedient.
That time, tobacco was huge down there.
Right, and all the kids did it. You know, both of my sisters did it.
My father
you know, and
she
exactly. And she babysat a lot. Both of my sisters babysat a lot. You know, she was always a go-to girl for babysitting. She was really good with the kids, and you know, she had a lot going for her. She was beautiful, you know, inside and out.
I'm sorry. My mother had a question, a suggestion. Did she ever ride on the back of a motorcycle? Was she a risk taker? Maybe ride without a helmet? Because she was wondering if maybe the head injury might have come from falling off a motorcycle.
Well, no, and I get that, but she didn't have, you know, the road rash. She didn't have. If you fall off a motorcycle, you have road rash. I mean, I'm a motorcycle rider myself. So she didn't have anything consistent with being hit by a car or falling off a motorcycle. That's what people were speculating when they found her. You know, how small towns talk. But her autopsy...
I read that her autopsy said she had road burns, but not cuts or bruises.
No, she didn't. She had a couple minor scrapes. That's what she had, was a couple minor scrapes. But nothing consistent with falling off a motorcycle or being hit by a car or falling out of a moving vehicle. Somebody definitely placed her there.
Yeah. How far was she from home where she was found?
Probably a mile, but a mile the other way. So, you know, they would have, the way she was walking, she was, I'm trying to grab my direction. I'm so directionally challenged. She was walking up a hill, okay, Route 140, and in order to get home, she would have had to take a right onto Route 5, okay, and then she would have taken a left off of Route 5. So she was walking up the hill where she, before she hit Route 5, which the last time that she was seen, and then whoever picked her up took a right and drove past where she would have taken a left to go home, and she was a mile the other way down on Route 5.
Now, they said Route 91 was right off of 5. Was the exit ramp from Route 91?
No, it's off one. It's the overpass was the last time that she was seen, and yes, it is close. I'm trying to think back then where the underpass was. It's in the same spot off of Route 140, but they moved it down on Route 5. You can pick up 91 off of Route 5 now, but it used to run down South Main Street.
Oh, okay. Because I read somewhere that they thought maybe someone came off of 91 to get her. So that's why I was wondering if there must have been an exit.
Well, it could. Yeah, they could have. They could have come off of 91 to pick her up. But like I said, speculation is that it was it was somebody just a couple years older than her. It wasn't a stranger. I mean, if it was a stranger, they certainly wouldn't have dropped her, you know, or left her on the side of the road for, you know, right where a cop car was.
Yeah.
I mean, if, you know, they would have definitely not, they would have been more afraid that the cop would see them.
Right, and I think that was probably the goal, dropping her there, seeing the cruiser, thinking, well, she has a better chance of surviving because I didn't mean to hit her so hard. And if, you know, that all goes along with I didn't mean to hit her so hard.
Right, exactly. But if it was a stranger, I mean, seriously, you know, the cop car was directly under the streetlight. You know, you can't miss it. It was right in front.
Yeah.
Right?
So do you think that her case is connected to any of the other missing and murdered girls from that time period, from that area?
Honestly, no, I don't. I mean, all the missing girls, I mean, they were found in remote places, weren't they? And, you know, they'd been, you know, tortured and, you know, hurt in ways that nobody should be hurt. My sister wasn't assaulted like that. Seriously, the only assault that was on her was her head. a blow to the head with like a lead pipe.
Oh, really? Ouch.
Yeah.
They said it's too small a town for no one to know anything. And I agree. I looked it up. It's a population of 11,000.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I mean that's why I'm thinking. I mean, my sister was 10 years older than me, so people are getting up in their years, and maybe somebody will come forward and just to get a cleaner conscience. Right? I can't imagine living with that knowledge for.
I can't imagine living with that either. Please forgive the background noise.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, that's 42 years you have to live with knowing somebody that killed somebody, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have 8 minutes left. Her mom, Ada, died in 2014 without any justice for her little girl. Police believe someone in Easton to know something, as I already stated. Your dad also passed away without knowing, or is he still alive?
No, my dad passed away in 2003, 2006 area. So he didn't know, but it's for things like that change the dynamic of my parents' lives, right? And as any death of a child does, but they just didn't understand it. It changed the whole dynamic of their lives, right? That's what makes it so sad.
Yes. So she's buried with your parents?
Correct. Yep, she's buried with my parents in Bloomfield.
I can't even imagine the loss of a child. I buried my father last year, and that was horrendous. And I was thinking today about all the people, even your parents, who, have buried a child or who've had to look at their child's death certificate the way I've had to look at my father's. And that's the natural course of things, even though he was kind of young. But I think of the people who've had to look at their child, and I can't begin to comprehend that.
Yeah, I don't. I feel for those people every day, honestly. I mean, one of my friends have had to bury their children. My mom had to bury her child. My sister had to bury her child. And it breaks my heart, right? And sometimes it's unavoidable.
Your sister lost a child?
Yeah, later in life, yep. She was 30.
Oh, that's almost even worse.
Yeah, it just, but it's not right. It's not natural to lose your children, right? Sometimes it's a disease awful like cancer. Sometimes it's, getting involved with the wrong crowd and drugs and that. But sometimes it's just plain stupid, and I don't mean to say it like that, but sometimes it's just people being ridiculous and causing an accident instead of living up to it. They that's what gets me so angry. It wasn't a disease. It wasn't cancer. It wasn't something awful. It's somebody took my sister's life and left her on the side of the road.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they did.
Right.
And the thing is, I wonder if anybody questioned her friends. Maybe something happened when she was at her friend's house. Was there a whole?
Well, they did, and I don't think anything happened there. I think it was random where somebody picked her up when she was walking home. And whether she knew the people or not, I don't know. Like I said, growing up and hearing speculation, I can remember one time when I was like 9, maybe 8 or 9. My sister came flying in the driveway with her car and told me to get in the house and stay there. And apparently the person who she thinks had something to do with it had called somebody and said they were coming back in town, and she was trying to protect us, right? So
I can't imagine living like that.
Yeah, and whether or not he was out to get us, I don't know. But I think at that point, in our life, it was, in my sister's life, it was like, she felt like she needed to do something. So, but she doesn't talk about it because, it was hard. I mean, they shared a room together. For my sister, that's alive, was only a year younger than my sister that died, right? So she was only a year younger than Stephanie. They were like best friends.
Yeah. Now, because it was on a highway, Route 5, not that there's much of a highway in East Windsor, but would the state police be involved
No,
in any way?
it wasn't a highway. Route 5 is like a main road in East Windsor. It's only a 2-lane road. It's not a highway. Route 91 is the highway that was close. But state police were not called.
Would know all the numbers if he were still alive.
Yeah.
And I would have
Route
asked
5 is
him
just
all of this before I talked to you, so I would have had a clue.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no, Route 5 is just like a 2-lane road. It's not a major highway.
Oh. Yeah, kind of like Route 16 is our main street, but it's not exactly a highway. So what are the police doing in this case right now? Are they doing anything?
No, they're not doing nothing. When Detective Stable reopened it, and he just said there was too many files missing, there was too many inconsistencies, too many people that had the answers had died. So he was just hoping that, sooner or later somebody with a guilty conscience was going to come forward and solve the mystery for us. But as far as detective work, there's too many people gone that had all the answers, and he thinks that a lot of it died with the original police that were involved.
Yeah, and again, this was 1975. And if you were
right,
an adult,
things were
pretty old now.
Right, yeah, things were different. Things were different back then too. Things were a lot different than they are now. I think the police department has.
I was only a year old. So, but I was in saying that in 1975. My father was 31 years old. That would make him 74 this year if he were alive. That means if these people were in their 30s, they're in their 70s.
Right, exactly.
Put it in perspective,
well,
they're in
even,
their 70s.
Yeah, I think the speculation was that they were only a couple years older than her, so they would have been 16 or 17 at the time.
Oh.
So maybe I got to wait a little bit longer, but that's what I'm hoping. Somebody comes forward and cleans their conscience before they knock on those pearly gates, I guess.
Absolutely. I want to thank you so much. We have 90 seconds left here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Great show. I didn't hardly have to do any talking, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, I'm a talker. Yeah, well, thank you very much for reaching out to me and having me on.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I love what I do, and to do a case out of this town is pretty special, and I think my dad's smiling down, and hopefully your sister is too, and hopefully she's up there glad you're doing what you're doing. I would give the East Windsor Police Department's phone number, but I don't know if anybody... if they would even take a call seriously at this point. But I will anyway. 860-292-8240. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I just want to let everyone know that my very next, although the date has not been set, will be the case of Judy O'Donnell. She's a missing woman from New York, but was last seen in Baltimore, Maryland. Have a great night. God bless you. Goodbye, Margaret.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye, and God bless you all. Thank you.